It started as a trickle at the dawn of our hobby when physicist William Higginbotham created tennis for two in 1958. In the long years after, that trickle became a stream, and then that stream a deluge. New releases assault us at a pace no man can hope to match, and the classics of yore are buried deeper and deeper in our lists. Well, I say, the legacy of the backlog has shaped our brain rot for long enough. Hello, welcome to another monthly update. With me today are Parrott
Hello, hello.
and Strawhat,
Konnichiwa, Minasan.
and as usual, I'm Connor. Well, how's everyone doing this month?
I'm doing pretty well, which by the time you guys hear this, I'll be back from my trip. But as we were recording, I'm getting ready to go on a trip at the end of this week, and I'm so ready to be done with work. This week has been going so slow.
Oh boy, usually does right before you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get the opposite and everything starts going real quick and you're just trying to tamp everything down before it sets on fire on your way out the door.
Yep.
That was half the time for me.
Yeah, I've been doing pretty good. I've been really busy lately. You'll see that I've played a lot of games, but if they weren't also short, I wouldn't have finished so many. But been doing a lot of different stuff. Went to a basketball game. I went to a PGA Tour event for Father's
Ooh.
Day. My sister graduated high school, so it's been a pretty busy month.
Nice. I've basically been a recluse for the entire month trying to get this vertical slice demo of my game finished. And I think I actually will make it by the end of the month, which is still a little slow because I was hoping to actually have the pitch ready by the end of the month, but still good progress, I think.
Nice.
That's good. I look forward to seeing it. Maybe we can try it on our Steam Decks eventually when it's
Mhm.
ready.
Yeah. I'm going to have to make sure it supports that, which was always kind of the intention, but the Steam Deck actually didn't even come up before this game idea did. So, anyways,
I don't know how hard is it to make. Do they give you the specs on that? Do you know off the top of your head? So you know that it works. How would you actually test it without owning one?
with you don't know.
I figured.
It's like all software development until you actually run it on the device
Yeah,
and look for yourself. You have
I,
no idea.
I figured. I mean, hey, just in my experience, scrolling through the Steam store, sometimes it even says it works and it actually doesn't, and vice versa. So you
Mm-hmm.
could just say
Yeah.
whatever you want. I'd say.
Yeah. If you're working at that level where you have to like blind release things, you might as well work at NASA. That's the type of work you're doing. Alrighty. Why don't you go ahead and start us off on the games of the month, Straw?
All right, so the first game I finished, which I talked about a bit at the end of our last episode, because I think I was really close to beating it. I think I was like right at the final boss, but I finished Blasphemous. It's a
Nice.
Metroidvania, very dark Metroidvania, and actually the sequel is, I don't know when it's coming out soon, I think. And I really enjoyed it. Like it's definitely got like that Souls type combat and like risk reward system. Like if you die, you lose part of your health and I guess part of your like magic, whatever it's called, that you can do like your special attacks with. But it was a really well made game. I didn't do everything in the game, but I found a lot of the secrets, and a lot of the boss fights were really cool. The final
Hmm.
boss was really challenging, which is always good. And yeah, I will definitely play the sequel at some point. I don't know how many people have played it that we know in our Discord. I know is it Alex? I think he is a big fan of it. But other than that, I don't know too many who've played it besides us.
Yeah, this seems like something that'd be up his alley. How does it compare to something like Hollow Knight, which is the other heavily Souls inspired Metroidvania I'm aware of?
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't actually as challenging as Hollow Knight for sure. I don't. The movement's definitely a little more stiff too. I feel like it's a lot more like a Castlevania game, and that like just the way the movement is. You don't have a whip, but you have like a sword,
Yeah.
and you can kind of like make yourself take damage if you want to like use like one of the abilities. You can like throw like a circular like blood disc, which can damage you as well, like when you throw it. But yeah, Hollow Knight definitely. I definitely like Hollow Knight more, but I would say the movement feels a lot more fluid because you don't. I don't remember. I think there is like a slide that you can unlock, but I feel like it is a little more slower pace than Hollow Knight is.
Hmm. Is it about the same length overall, or is this a shorter game?
Oh, it's a lot shorter. I think it took me like 10.5 hours or around 10 hours. And like I said, it would have took me a little longer if I did everything, but Hollow Knight has a lot more to it, I feel like, especially with the DLC stuff.
Yeah. From the art I've seen, though, the ambience and like atmosphere of the whole experience sounds like it's worth the price of admission, at least.
Oh yeah, I think I got it. I don't even know. I think I got it in a humble bundle, actually. I don't think I even paid for
Mm-hmm.
it. And then there was that Metroidvania humble bundle I also got, and I gifted, I think was it you, Connor, that got Blasphemous from it, and I gave Parrott Hollow Knight, so it worked
Probably.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that bundle looked so good, but I had literally just bought like 3 of the games in it like 2 weeks previously. So I really messed up there because I also haven't even tried Blasphemous yet, so I really messed up. But this is a game I don't really know that much about it. I just like looked at it, jumping of course, but I like Metroidvanias once in a while. I usually play one every like few months, and
Hmm.
yeah, I just feel like it looks so much like Castlevania, so I was like really into like just the way it looked.
Yeah. Eventually, I'll have another burst of going through those ones I've been preparing.
Yeah, luckily I only had owned 2 of the games in that big bundle, and I gave both of you one, so the rest of them I got to keep. So I'll probably play whenever I'm ready for another Metroidvania. It's probably going to be Bloodstained is going to be the next one I play, which is from Higurashi. So, or not Higurashi. What's his name? Igarashi. Is that
I
right?
can't remember his name right now, but the Castlevania guy.
Yeah, him. But yeah, I heard it's really good. I was telling Connor and Parrott before the podcast. I did own it on Switch. I think I backed it actually, but then I sold it because I heard it was terrible on Switch. So I just
Can
got it
confirm.
here again.
Yeah, I never tried that one. I played the other Bloodstained game. What is it? Curse of the Moon?
Yeah, Curse of the Moon. Yep, I did too.
Yeah, I played the first one of those. It was very cool. And one day I'll get to the second one. It's deep in the backlog somewhere. So I'll just bring up another game that I believe was in the bundle that I played this month without having the bundle, which was Haiku the Robot.
Yep, that is in there, and it's definitely on my list now because it's in that bundle and I own it.
Yeah, so it is. You play as this cute little robot, and it is it is a Metroidvania game. It does not reinvent the wheel, but you play as this robot, and as you go, just like any other Metroidvania, you get different power ups, which I feel like really help the game because in the beginning the combat is really simple. Like it's just you can walk up and stab, and that's about the extent of it. But then as it goes on, you get new abilities for combat, but also for exploration, as always. So it was just like a really satisfying system. I think I just haven't played a Metroidvania in a little bit, so I this was one of those games I just got really into, trying to try to fill in the map because it does something that I think is probably common in Metroidvanias, but this is I think the first one I've ever played that did it, where the map was just like all black and when you walked into new area, it wasn't actually filled in as you walked. You had to like find certain spots in the map to open up the ability to fill in the map, if that makes sense.
Interesting. That's a bit different from what I've seen.
Yeah, like it was broken up into zones. I don't remember, maybe like 10 zones. So each zone had a map station. So you needed to find that like totally blind without a map to then unlock the ability to fill in the map.
Oh, you know what? That is kind of similar to like Hollow Knight in a
Yep,
way.
that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's funny how these Metroidvanias do like map charting differently. Which, yeah, that sounds a lot like Hollow Knight because you have to find the map maker and then you get it. Where Blasphemous, you just pretty much the map fills in as you go to it. So that's kind of nice for that.
Yeah, I think I prefer that way than this other way. The Hollow Knight. Again, I haven't really played Hollow Knight, so I didn't know that. But I kind of assumed because I read some reviews of this game, and they just said a lot of it is just a Hollow Knight clone. So that makes sense.
What's your favorite part about the gameplay itself?
I thought this was another thing. Apparently, it may be in Hollow Knight. I'm not sure, but I liked how when you killed enemies, you got gears, and then you could then use those gears to buy items or upgrades, or you could use them to heal yourself while fighting. Is that
Huh.
also something that happens in Hollow Knight?
Well, in Hollow Knight,
Not
you
quite
you
like
do,
that, no.
yeah, it's a little different. You do get like currency that you can use to buy like badges and stuff, but the healing, the healing part in Hollow Knight, you get like you fill like a meter from hitting enemies, and then it can fill up and you can heal yourself. So it's not exactly the same.
Gotcha. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this, when you killed enemies, you got gears, and then the gears could be used to buy the upgrades, but there was also a balance where the gears also could be used. Like if you hold the right trigger, you would sit there and it would take like 3 or 6 seconds or something, and that
Yeah.
and then you could heal your like hearts up that way. So it was like, do you want to spend it on upgrades or whatever, or do you want to spend it on healing yourself? And then that was also like the souls mechanic where if you died, you lost a lot of the gears unless you had put them in the bank or whatever.
Sounds. It kind of reminds me of FTL in a funny way. So it's like a split between the two. That Hollow Knight style of in the moment healing system, but that same sort of mentality. I'm constantly doing FTLs. Do I repair my ship with all this scrap I
Yep.
found, or do I actually buy a better gun?
Yep. Or in the what happened to me multiple times. I feel like this game wasn't immensely challenging until like some of the bosses were really really hard.
Mm.
And I didn't get 100%, but I don't remember what it was, but I got like 75-80% of the things. So I wasn't like underpowered, but I like and then so like in the bosses they're brutal at times, and you also had to be like, do I have the time to heal without getting hit again? Because that was something that happened to me
Yeah.
constantly. It's like, I'm just gonna heal. Oh, now I took 2 more damage and I'm dead.
Whoopsies.
How long was it?
I think it took me like I think it was like 7 or 8 hours. So not like super short, but like a pretty normal length.
Yes, it's shorter than even like Blasphemous and Hollow Knight too, so that's nice.
Yeah, but it wasn't as short. I played that other one earlier this year. It was like Gato Roboto. I remember playing, and that was like 3 hours long. So
Yeah. One of the ones I've played, Momodora, is like 3 or 4 hours. That's still two of those.
yeah, so it was a very satisfying game. Also, it had a really cool atmosphere. I think that you guys would both like it. It's like a little robot and just like this like derelict like factory settings and things, fighting different robots. Definitely has a cool vibe.
Vibe is a good thing for Metroidvania since exploration is such an important part.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right. Well, for my first game of the roundup is the first official graduate of our community justice.
The Wheel of Power.
Yep. I played Bugsnax. And lordy was it weird. I mean,
Yep.
it was kind of normal for about 95% of it. It was like, okay, we're on an island, we're catching bugs. This is just like better Pokemon in the catching aspect. Like, I'm just imagining if I had a Pokemon game where I actually had to do all these little puzzles and know what all the creatures liked and didn't like to actually go and nab them like that, that'd be really fun. So, from the gameplay side, it was really neat. I think they could have gone a little more complicated with some of the puzzles, especially later in where it felt like a lot of it got kind of samey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I actually really like this game. It's
Yeah.
kind of like it's like what you described. It's like Pokemon Snap, pretty much. Have you ever played
Mhm.
that?
Yes, I was going to
Yeah.
say Pokemon. It's somewhere this weird evolution where
Mhm.
Pokemon Snap and the mainline games actually kind of like merged in terms of what they were doing.
Yeah, and I just love all the creature designs. They're so weird. It's just like one of the weirdest games that I think I've ever played,
Yeah.
just in concept.
The end of that game is insane.
Yes, that's where I was just like, all right, you had me for a while, and I knew this was going to get weird because that was like the joke from the very first trailer. Is a bunch of us saw that first trailer and just like, there's no way this is innocent. This is not going to be this happy, hunky dory, kid friendly. We just had that feeling, and then somehow they still managed to surpass my expectations on how weird it got at the end. It's like, what the heck is going on here? What were they smoking? I love it, but at the same time, it completely derailed my entire uh, impression of the game.
Yeah, I can I can definitely get that. That's a very odd, unsettling, just bizarre game. It's definitely one of a kind. I'll say that.
Absolutely, great PS5 showcase game as far as I'm concerned.
I know. I think it was like the second game I played on PS5, so pretty good. I played Miles Morales at launch, and then after that, I didn't buy any other games, so I just played Bugsnax.
Yeah, literally a game that could have been released on the PS3 with no downgrades.
Yeah,
Oh, except for the bugs talking out of your controller. That
True.
could have been PS4
Mhm.
era.
Very important though.
Yes. That's the real Pokemon anime experience.
It's a very something about the, at least for me, the gameplay loop was just addicting. I don't know. I actually got 100% in this game. I got all the trophies and everything in it.
Whoa.
Nice. I went for like 85%, but at some point the side quests are getting really tedious to me. Even though I knew that the coolest parts of the game were at the end of every side quest where you would get the like legendary creatures
Right.
to
Yep.
catch. But I was just like, no, I'm done checklisting. I need to get ready for Final Fantasy. Let's get this off the plate.
Yeah, I want to try the DLC for this game at some point.
Feeding the people too, just to see what
Oh
weird
yeah.
body parts they get, is just like body horror.
If this wasn't Muppets, this would be the creepiest game ever, but it's Muppets, so I guess it worked. I've learned not to really trust Muppets. That it's like 50% of the time, if you see them, it's because the creators wanted to do something really weird and just like
Mhm.
slip it under the radar. All right, that's that for me.
All right, well, my next game was one of my big long games of the month. I guess I played two almost 50-hour games, or over for this one, and then almost
Nice.
that for next. But I played The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, the big Nintendo release for May. And I gotta say, I really, really liked it. I think it's a big improvement over Breath of the Wild in pretty much every area. I didn't like the intro as much as Breath of the Wild. I feel like it took a little long to get going and was a little slow till you got the paraglider. But then after that, after I got that paraglider, I just took off into the sunset and basically didn't do any story things until 40 hours into the game. Then I'm
Oh
like,
my
well, all right,
goodness.
I did almost all. I got like around half the shrines. Then I'm like, all right, I'm ready to start doing some dungeons and story stuff. So it was funny because one of the earliest things you're supposed to unlock is the camera to actually take things or take pictures of like things to send back to some of the crew. And I didn't unlock that till I was like done with the game. I'm like, oh, that was that question mark on my menu the whole game. I
Oh,
pretty much just ignored, but
that sounds wow. And so since you didn't unlock that, would you have had to go back to all those places to take the pictures?
well, there was really only one story section that required you to have that, which is why I had to go back and do it, because I think there was optional stuff you could have done with it. And obviously if you want to fill up like the bestiary or whatever it is for with all the enemies, obviously at the end I'm like, well, I'm pretty much done with the game now, so I'm not even going to bother with that. But yeah, there was just one section where I needed to like take a picture so that somebody could interpret the writing or something. So
Huh. Yeah, it sounds like one of those kinds of things. There's just like maybe you should have just like not opened up the world until we had all of these little
yeah,
beats.
pretty much. Yeah, because I like a lot of the underground stuff I didn't really start doing till the end, which that might be kind of a spoiler. But it's there's almost like three different sections to the world.
Yeah, sound like it.
But yeah, I think the powers were a lot. I enjoyed them a lot more in this game because you have the fusing ability, which you can fuse weapons and whatever you want together, which you just get some crazy combinations. The part where you can like ascend into like the higher areas is really great, and I often would forget about it as I'm trying to like climb up somewhere. I'm like, oh yeah, I can just ascend, which takes no effort. So
That's that ability where it just like slips you through the ceiling. Yeah,
yep,
I've seen the
exactly.
videos.
Yeah, so if you're in a cave, you can just be like, "All right, I'm done here. I'm just getting out," and you can just peace out and go up.
Literally the Pokemon escape rope. It's just like I'm done.
The dungeons were definitely a lot better, I feel like, or the temples. They were all like elemental temples.
Hmm.
Some of the bosses were definitely a lot more developed with the companion you always had with you, and then the final boss I really liked. It was a very challenging. It was funny because there's like a certain food item, because in Breath of the Wild you could just kind of stock up on high heart food items at the end of the game for your last battle and you could win with pretty much weak equipment, but that is not how it works in this game because there's a certain element that will prevent you from doing that, because there's like it almost reminds me of Souls in a way, like kind of how they punish you. So I had to get like really good at the combat because I was out of the specific healing item I needed for the final boss. So I really didn't have many healing items, so I got really good at dodging and doing the flurry by the end. But I did it. It took
Nice.
me probably an hour or two of fighting the final boss, but I managed to do it, and it made me like the game even more. So it's definitely going to be, I would say, in my top 10 at the end of the year. It's funny enough because it isn't my favorite Nintendo title yet. I still think I like Echoes, or not Echoes. Why am I
Engage.
forgetting? Engage. Yes, Engage a little more. But it definitely passed Breath of the Wild for me, I would say.
Nice. And maybe one day I'll have an actual opinion on those two.
Yeah, I put in like 5 hours, and I'm not gonna. I don't know. I will probably go. I will not probably. I will go back at some point, but I just could feel like 6 hours in or whatever. I was just not in the right mood to play this sort of game. As you know, I have to be in the right mood to want to play a game that's going to take me 50 hours. And
Mm-hmm.
something about it, like you said, that intro spot, I just did not really enjoy. I remember the intro section of Breath of the Wild being so cool, but I just did not really like that part. And I think for me, like the new powers, I like the Ascend one, but the whole like building vehicles and building things thing isn't really super appealing to me. So like when I was forced to do it constantly, I wasn't really having very much fun with that. So I don't know how that kind of goes for the rest of the game.
I know that I've seen some videos on YouTube of people turning that combat system into just like this absurd, almost fighting like Kusoge fighting game style
Yeah.
combos. I was just like, okay, I might like this for that. That looks insane. Not intended, but it looks great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like building stuff either, but I do feel like they gave you a lot of stuff like right beside where you needed. If you ever needed to build something, you could do something really quick. It wasn't like too time consuming, which didn't make it as bad.
Yeah. I'm just going to have to go in with a more open mind at another point in time. Because I just really like Breath of the Wild, but something about this game just I understand that it is a better version of Breath of the Wild, but I think for me a lot of the part I liked about Breath of the Wild was it like being like the first time doing it. So for me, like doing it again with like a slightly different map, some new stuff is really cool. But to me, it like wasn't. I don't know. I didn't like get super engaged into it right away, so I just stopped for
Yeah.
now.
I feel like with open world games, especially, they're going to be so long, you have to be super dedicated. That's kind of what happened to me with Witcher 3. I got like 5 or 6 hours in at the beginning of the year, and I'm like, I don't want to play this for 150 hours, which is
Yep.
what you would have to do. And that's why
That's why
I
I
didn't,
don't.
yeah, I didn't touch, I try to be really careful with what open world games I play. Like after Breath of the Wild, I played Spider-Man, which I mean that's open world, but it's really small. It doesn't really feel like it. And then Ghosts of Tsushima, which was really good. And then I don't think I've played another one since. Like I really try to be selective with that just because it's so easy to get burned out on those games.
Yeah.
Yep.
I treated Witcher 3 more or less like a BioWare RPG. It's just I did a few of the bigger side quests and then mainline the rest of it, and I will never go to that game as an open world because I have no interest in it as an open world.
Well, instead of playing, I got Zelda and played it for 5 hours. And then instead of playing Zelda, I went and finished the most important gaming trilogy in history,
Could this be?
Spark the Electric Jester.
Of course.
This game, so good. I'm not even kidding. Like Spark the Electric Jester 2 was the first one that was like a 3D Sonic, but just something about that game just did not feel good to me. I didn't think it was the
A
levels
little
were
rough.
too big. I couldn't like quite understand what I didn't like about it until I played this third one. Where the second one, like the levels were like 3D Sonic, but they were kind of big, and you could kind of wander off in a lot of different directions, which sounds cool until you like I really think about it. And like Sonic is better in 3D at least when it's totally on like where large sections of it are just on rails where you're just going in one
Yeah.
direction. Because once
Hmm.
you're trying to like go in a 3D space, it just does not really control very well.
Yeah. The ideal like Sonic 3D level layout is where it's almost basically like a racing game with
Yes.
just maybe like a few little pockets that you could dip into if you know where they are. And then otherwise it's just like the route and then maybe like an alternate route or a faster route,
Yep.
basically.
And that is exactly what this game does. It just like the level structure reminded me so much of the Sonic Adventure games, which is a really good thing in my opinion. but
Yeah.
it's just like it had like the main route, like you said, and there were lots of different alternate routes, and then there were collectibles and hidden stuff in the levels, but you didn't need to do that. But also, when you did do them, it didn't like take you so far off the rails
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like that would break the game, which is what the problem with the second one is. And yeah, so this game is just super good. I definitely recommend this to Connor because you like Sonic Adventure.
Yeah. It's kind of started as a sort of like joke of the, oh, it's the Sonic spin-off series, but the more you've been talking about it, the more I'm going, I do want to play this third
Yeah,
one.
there we go. It has so many like level varieties too. That's what I really liked. It like cities, forest, factories. There's airport levels, volcano levels, beach levels. There's like this crazy level where you're like in space and you're like messing with low gravity. It's like so cool.
Nice.
And also what I liked about it is there are just like the linear get to the exit levels, but then there are also missions that are just like focusing on one like more advanced move that you can do in the game, and you have to beat a level just doing that. And there's like levels where you have to like run around an area and find the coins, or time trial missions. There's also some really weird levels where you drive a car or fly a helicopter. So it does a much better job like mixing up the formula.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, definitely recommend this one. This one and the first one. The second one, I'm not sure it matters, but
Yeah. Take a straight hit of that late 1990s Dreamcast energy.
yep, but this game definitely has that.
Parrott and his characters that start with the letter S, Sonic, Spark, just that's the hot sauce there.
Yep, a cartoon character running, jumping. I'm all in.
So is there any other Sonic like series is out there that you've have your eye on now that Spark's done?
No, I don't know. I need to do some, as we're recording, the Steam summer sale happens tomorrow. So I need to do a lot of research on more Sonic clones.
He's gonna come back with like a list of 10. It's like, guys, I found all of the Prime Sonic spin-offs.
There's a few genres that I'm going to be bring up in this episode that I'm going to be doing that for. And yeah, this is one of them. The Sonic spinoff. The Sonic clone, I should say.
I think spin-off is more proper considering, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I get it.
Just shoot me now. All right. Well, I made multiple bad decisions with my time this month, and the first of them was starting up Xenoblade Chronicles out of nowhere for no reason.
Now it's Rhine time.
I played the whole thing in Japanese because I was not ready for that English voiceover. I had gotten one taste of it back in the day. I was just like, no, please, no.
Oh, see, that's funny. I actually did like the English voice acting. In the second game, you definitely should play it in Japanese then, because Rex, the main character, is really annoying in English. So
Yeah, but I'm way ahead of you on that one. That one's going to be permanent locked to Japanese. I'm half tempted to just play the whole thing in Japanese again because I need another thing to practice with. But,
there you go.
But considering the fact that I'm already planning to play a second game, should tell you that I did enjoy the first quite a bit. Not perfect, but it did some things that I was quite surprised by, mainly with how compelling the exploration in the game was, considering that there were not much in the way of side quests or really side objectives of any kind.
Yeah, the side quests are very MMO like in that game, which I feel like the biggest knocks on the first game are that, and the battle system is a little rough, I feel like, but the characters and the story are really strong, especially in one.
Yeah, the battle system is in some ways really polished. The only thing to me that's really lacking is a lot of tactical options later on, especially for Shulk himself. Thankfully, I liked his main kit, but his kit does not change for pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, I feel like I liked the combat a lot more the first time I played it, but after playing Xenoblade 2 and even 3 and going back, it just feels a lot more boring. I feel like the 2 is a lot of people's favorite combat. It's probably mine as well. Like there's so much going on. Like it takes you a while to just get ingrained to what you're doing, but once you can comprehend that system, it just opens up so much and it has so much variety to it. It's great.
Yeah. I'm hitting this point where I'm really enjoying overly complicated. Like, the more complicated you make these action or semi-action combat systems, the happier I'm getting at this point. That's kind of brain rot that trying to do ranked Guilty Gear
Hmm.
uh, inflicted me with.
Have you played Xenoblade Parrott?
I have always been interested in this game, which is funny because it does not seem like a game I would play, but it's actually on my backlog to try at some point because I do
All
have
right.
it. I
I
think I
won't.
actually played like the first like 30 minutes and I was like, and I actually remember liking the combat system, but at this point I hardly remember it. But
Nice. I was gonna ask Connor some spoilers, but I won't then since you're gonna play it. I'll just have to DM him later because I'm curious because there's a lot of twists and turns in the story that are shocking, I would say.
Yeah, for me it was an interesting game that's kind of sci-fi again as far as the story goes. It was also kind of darker than I expected, considering how bright and cheery it looks on the surface.
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
it's funny because like the whole game takes place on the two bodies of like two giant gods that were fighting each other and
yeah,
then just stopped.
I just remember hearing about this game when it was on Wii, right? But it was like one of those games
Yep.
that got translated from Japan. There was 3 of them I remember, and
Project
this was
Yep.
Rainfall.
Hmm.
yeah, and
This was the big one.
yep. And I just remember like seeing the setting of it and just thinking it was so cool. So that's really the only reason I've ever even had it on my radar to play.
It's really impressive. Like, I know I was playing the definitive edition where things
Hmm.
were remastered, but I've seen enough of the original and the comparisons to know that that was a very impressive game to have working on the Wii.
Yeah, the faces look really muddy, but other than that, it looks pretty good. It even was on the new 3DS. It was one of the few new 3DS
Yep.
exclusive
Yeah,
games, but yeah, definitely play the Switch one because it's gorgeous with what they do with everything.
especially if you are playing the Switch version on an emulator with some nice proper resolution upscaling and stable frame rates.
Yeah, that's what when I think when I replay those games, that's what I'm gonna do because Xenoblade 2, I remember looked awful in handheld mode on Switch. Like it was so bad.
Yeah, and I looked at the port report or the Digital Foundry report for definitive edition on the handheld, and all I have is a light. And considering that one was also dropping to like 360p on the light when you're like turning the
Mhm.
camera and stuff like that, I was like, no, no, thank you. I'm gonna go play this on a computer.
It's just crazy that Monolith Soft can even make these games on Switch. I mean, like you said, it's a wonder they can run it all with how old the tech is. I mean, they also helped with Tears of the Kingdom, so they're just like the wonder makers for Nintendo right now.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a lot of the technical stuff they pulled off, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is actually a fairly modern game, which is really cool. But yeah, that Switch Lite, nope, not enough for that.
Not enough power.
Yeah,
Well, I'll definitely be excited to hear what you think of Xenoblade 2 because it's quite a bit different in some areas. Some people like it more, some like it less. So we'll see. It's a lot more anime, I would say, which depending on where you're at can be good or bad.
yeah. Everything I've been seeing is telling me that I am the kind of audience who will jive with what Xenoblade 2 is putting down.
Well, Sean and I both will agree with you. So,
Looking forward to it.
all right. So the next, I think we're going to combine these next two games because both Parrot and I matched up on a couple games here. So let's first start with Castle on the Coast, which is a random 3D platformer, which I can't even remember where I heard about this. I think from Kyle Bossman on one of his streams or something, but it's basically just a quick 3 hour ish 3D platformer where you play as a giraffe with a jetpack. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna let Parrot take it from there.
Oh man, the just that's like what matters. He's like a gooby giraffe who doesn't talk, just like nods his head, and then he has a jetpack. So it's like just so good. And it also like when I first played it, because I got this because you told me about it on one of our episodes at some point. I think you
Hmm.
did say Kyle Bosman is where you heard of
Hmm.
it, but I had never heard of this till that. So I just grabbed it, and at first I wasn't really sure what to think because it definitely is like probably the most floaty platform I've ever played.
Even more than Little Big Planet.
Yes, more than Little Big Planet, which is saying something because I don't really like Little Big Planet that much. I don't hate Little
Shame.
Big Planet, but I think it's like it's on a lower level for me. But
Shame.
yeah, so I don't really like the floatiness, but this game, once you got used to it, it kind of just worked. Though you did, you could just use that to your advantage and just like between the floaty jump and the jetpack, you
Mhm.
could just like totally avoid like huge sections of platforming.
Yeah,
That's what I love to do.
it was definitely a fun little time. I think I kept unequipping the jetpack accidentally though, and then I'd like jump, and then I'd be like,
Mhm.
"Oh no," because if you hit the B button, it unequips it and re-equips it. So, but the voice acting in this game is hilarious for the children. It's like very low budget, you can tell. And
Yep.
like Parrott said, like the draft does not talk; he just nods his head with his tongue sticking out. I think is his name George.
I think so, but it's also confusing because like the villain thinks his name is something else, so they call him two
Bob,
different things.
yeah,
Yeah.
or something. But yeah, they have some boss fights which are very strange. But yeah, I mean, if it was much longer than it was, I probably would have got a little bored of it. But it was fun for what it was, I
Yeah.
thought.
I like that it just had like a little hub world and then there was just 4 areas you had to go to. And then like
Mhm.
2 of them were actually like full like collectathon areas, which were fun. But then they also mixed it up where one of them was just like a car level. So it was short, but it was like at least a mix up of something.
Mhm.
And I like
And
that like it was almost like Mario Sunshine in that you would do like the platforming stuff in the hub world and then you get teleported to this other dimension that was just like a
yep.
pure platforming. Like that's where like the difficult quote unquote platforming would happen. You're like in this alternate universe where all you were doing was just the platforming, kind of like how in Mario Sunshine you go into like the hidden
Oh
doors or
yeah,
whatever.
those ones.
They even had some like monkey ball like
Yep,
sections.
yep.
Nice. Well, I look forward to now. You guys are going to have to play the Adventure Pals, which is another
Ooh.
platformer featuring a gooby giraffe. Only
Really?
this one is instead inside the backpack of a little kid. And there's
Ooh,
this great little animation where instead of whipping his neck around like I thought it was, he sticks his tongue out and uses it as a little helicopter.
Ooh.
okay, sold.
I think I'm looking. Oh yeah, I see it. I look at it on Steam right now. So
Yep,
It's
giraffe
one,
sold.
yep, 100% parrot looking and strangely similar to what you guys just described to
yeah.
me.
And then the other game we played, which I had played this before, I think you did as well, Parrot. But if not, we played Diddy Kong Racing, the
Yeah.
N64 classic. Now I didn't play the whole thing because I had played it before, but I just played it for a little bit. I just wanted to play as Banjo because I'm Banjo. She says when you select him in the game, but he's only in the
What?
N64 version, not in the DS version because, of course, Rare was not owned by Nintendo. So this one has Banjo and Conquer, but it's one of my favorite kart racers single player wise. Now, I do feel like the controls are a little weird compared to
Mm-hmm.
Mario Kart. Like everything, like when you try to tilt or like swerve, you like shoot, I feel like a car length away from where you want to go. So I don't feel like it controls the best, but I gotta say the single player content in this game is definitely the best in any kart racer, I think.
Yeah. So this actually was the first time I played it.
Okay.
So I did play through the whole thing, and I agree. I like the idea of the single player. It is like definitely more robust than any kart racer I can think of, other than maybe Crash Team Racing, because I played the remake of that, and that had a pretty extensive
Right.
single player also, pretty similar to this. But this game has a lot of good ideas. I agree that it controls kind of bad, especially like having no nostalgia for it. I still liked it, but there were a lot of things about it that I, honestly, without save states, I'm not sure I would have finished it because there were times where I just had to abuse them because the AI was
Oof.
just like so unfair.
Hmm.
But then I also like the last race, like one of the last races is just like crazy. You have to be absolutely perfect to get through it. But also, I wonder partially if some of my struggles up until that point in some of the races were because I didn't fully know the game because I ended up looking up like I like on the last part you have to one of the last parts you have to race this like pig around the course and he basically goes at full speed at all times so you have to perfectly hit every single boost pad. But I didn't realize until I had to look it up because I'm like I don't know how you could possibly do this that like if you let go of the accelerate button as you're going on a boost pad it boosts you further and faster. And I don't think so. Now I wonder if I had just known that actually playing the rest of the game, maybe I would have not had any issues.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I even knew that, but like I said, I didn't finish it either. So, because I remember those boss fights being really hard though. Like the dragon, I remember
Mm-hmm.
being hard, like with the plane stuff, and even is there like an octopus too?
Yeah, and then when you have to like go back and do races again, but get the coins
Mhm.
while doing them. But then none of the AI obviously has to go out of the way to get the coins. It just makes it harder when the AI seems to just rubber band behind you, like they're always right behind you at all times.
Yeah, kart racers are a funny genre for me because it's one that I feel like Mario Kart is pretty much the only one that can convince me to play them. Otherwise, I get kind of I'm one of those racing sim sorts. So if I
Mhm.
can't like manually shift and try to maximize my power in a corner, like with that really detailed technical driving, my brain just kind of goes, "What am I doing?"
Yeah, I'm like the opposite. I can't play a realistic racer. I just play either a kart racer or like an arcade racer. That's about as far as I'll go.
Mhm.
Like I like Forza Horizon games a lot, but I would never play a Forza Motorsport game. And it sounds like you're like the opposite.
Yeah, I it's pretty much just I don't know if I would ever, I don't really think I'll ever end up playing Diddy Kong Racing or any of the other kart racers.
Yeah, that makes sense. But there's a couple games on my list that you said that you did want to play. Rumor has it.
Yes.
So the first one I'll talk about is Origami, which is a stealth game I've played. I think I just found this on a list somewhere because I've always loved stealth games. I'm a big Splinter Cell is always my favorite for like pure stealth, and then I love Hitman, I love Metal Gear Solid, but I feel like this is definitely a genre that does not come out nearly as much as it used to. Back in those
Mhm.
No.
PS2 days, especially.
I feel like what did it in was all of the games that tried to shoehorn in
Mm-hmm.
stealth sections because
Yeah.
that's what made me think I hated stealth games for a long time.
Yep.
And then I finally played the likes of Metal Gear Solid 4 and Dishonored and all that. And I was like, oh, no, I love this if it's done right.
Yep.
It might be the Assassin's Creed fatigue as well. Like people think every stealth game's like Assassin's Creed, which obviously isn't true.
Yep. So this is a game where you play as a ninja, and there's a story. It's a story. It's whatever. It's definitely not the appeal to the game, but you play as like a spirit of a ninja basically, and you gain power when you're in the shadows, and you are injured when you're in the light basically. So you don't like die being in the light, but if someone sees you and you're caught, you're just basically one hit killed. So this game is definitely more of a pure stealth game where you can't just fight your way out of it because there is no
Nice.
actual combat. So you can play as like you can. So your main move is that you can teleport from shadow to shadow, and that move pretty much is like two. You can do it 2 times in quick succession without it like recharging. But if when you're in the shadows, your recharge is so fast because it's trying to reward you for staying in the shadows at all times. So you kind of just like zip around shadow to shadow or sneaking around normally, hoping to not get seen. And then you can take out the enemies from behind, or like if they are just alerted to you, you can like take them out, as they're being alerted. But as soon as they like see you, you're just dead.
Mm. Yeah, I'm watching gameplay now. It does look fun. Have you ever played Mark of a Ninja?
Yes, I have played that. That is
Is
also
it?
a really good game.
I was gonna say, how similar is it to that? Because I did like Mark of a Ninja. I know that's 2D, but it kind of reminds me a bit of it.
There's definitely a lot of similarities in that. But from what I can remember, Mark of the Ninja, you can actually just like fight people off once you get caught a little bit. In this game, you
Hmm.
definitely
Yeah.
cannot. You just are just instantly dead. And I actually was like enjoying this game quite a bit as I played the first like 4 levels. I was just sneaking around, killing everybody as I went. But then like the last 2/3, I think there were 13 levels, so like 10 levels, I just went through the whole level without killing anybody, which made it take a lot longer, but it was also just a lot more rewarding to just try to be as silent as possible.
Nice. Yeah, that's I have like especially with games like Deus Ex Human Revolution, once they start adding in those ghost bonuses where it's just like, oh,
Hmm.
don't just make it through the level, don't get any sort of warnings or signals. It's like, all right, brain rot activated, let's go. This is
Yep.
going to take an extra 2 hours per level now.
Yep. That's how I am with stealth games too. I really like it. I don't mind the like going around and killing people when needed part, but I really tried to avoid being detected. In this game, you can unlock a move where you can like hide the bodies, which is fun. You can
Nice.
like send them to the shadow realm, and you unlock like different abilities. Like I had a move that I used where you could just turn invisible for 10 seconds. So there's like a bit of skill tree stuff going on, but mostly it's just a pure stealth game. It's a little bit budget, but it's definitely worth playing.
Nice. Might already have it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll have to keep an eye on it during the sale. Maybe I'll pick it up.
Yep. There is a second one I've heard pretty mediocre to bad things about it, so I'm not sure I will play it. because it sounds like it's the exact opposite of what I like, where they added combat systems into it and like made it, instead of like linear levels, it's more of an open world kind of spot you go to like every area a lot of times, so it kind of doesn't sound as appealing.
Yeah.
But it's co-op, so get some points for that.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Neat. Okay. Well, next on my list of things that ate up all my time this month when I should have been working on a game is Final Fantasy XVI, because I could not resist the temptation to play Final Fantasy mainline title day one for once.
I'm really curious what you think of this because I've heard so many mixed things from like every person I know like has a different opinion. I'm like, whoa, this game is fascinating.
Yes, and I can understand why opinions are mixed, because you can get a sense for the director a lot in this game, which is to say, unlike 15, this one, which I do enjoy, but this one's actually very cohesive in its vision, which means you're also getting the vision. And I love it. I absolutely love it so far. I'm about 80% of the way in.
Nice. Yeah, I would definitely be playing it too if I had a PS5, but I gotta wait for PC. So
Yeah. I will say I am a little jealous of you having that wait for the PC version, because this game is going to look so bloody good on PC. It already looks good on PlayStation, but does have a fairly inconsistent frame rate, although it does in action and when it matters, it does stay around the 50 to 60 range of frame rate. But yeah, it does have some issues keeping a high resolution and a high frame rate on the console, so pushing it to its limits.
nice. So the biggest thing I've heard as a JRPG fan, a lot of the older school, like of course JRPG Final Fantasy fans aren't as happy. And I know one of my friends also says it feels more like playing a Devil May Cry game compared to like like a Final Fantasy game. What do you agree with that?
It is definitely much more of a Devil May Cry game in terms of the action and the combat, which to me is a plus, because I've not been huge on a lot of this in retrospect, but I'm kind of the opinion now that the only good turn-based Final Fantasy combat system was tens,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the active
Older,
time battle
yeah.
systems, those were interesting at the time, but now they're very dated and aren't very nice to go back to, because you lose so much technical depth trying to like get that sort of a hybrid thing going
Mm-hmm.
on. Whereas here they just use the kind of depth that you could get from a fighting or a character action game, and I really enjoy what they ended up doing with this.
Yeah, I feel like I know Final Fantasy is a weird series for me because our Final Fantasy X was the last one I connected with. Then I didn't connect with one till 7 Remake, which I loved. But before that, there was a bunch in between where I'm just like, I don't like this. And I think at this point is the people who want like classic Final Fantasy or more like a JRPG type need to accept that they're going to have to go to a different series because Final Fantasy is a lot more high budget, high action fantasy now. Like it's not going to be like its roots were. And now that I've accepted that, I'm good with it. But I know at one point I was kind of with the people. Like this isn't the Final Fantasy
Yeah.
I liked, but
To me, the series has always been about the presentation and the bigger than life stories and the cinematics and all that. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is everything I've always loved from a Final Fantasy and more. Oh
mm-hmm.
my gosh, the cinematics this time around are just mind blowing. And the presentation is just, it's so solid. It's so polished, especially
Mm-hmm.
especially in comparison to 15, which, as much as I loved it, the seams were so visible everywhere in that game.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't take too long to come to PC. I think at worst like 2 years, but hopefully 1 year. But I'll definitely play it right away. How long is it? Like, how far are you into it so far?
I think I'm about 40 hours in, and I probably, since I'm doing every side quest, I probably have another 10 or 15 to go.
That's not bad at all for a JRPG. So,
Yeah. And I'm going to add one other thing that I kind of this might be a questionable take, but it really feels like that kind of RPG that we've been missing since BioWare went bad. Because this time around, there's something different about the way they've developed and fleshed out the characters and done the writing, and it's really good.
Whoa, you dropped the B word. That gets my attention.
Yeah, I think you're going to like it from that aspect. It's almost like the Mass Effect 2 of Final Fantasy games in some ways. Or my more controversial take that should probably be ignored. It was the game that Dragon Age 2, or it's the game that I always believed Dragon Age 2 was, as one of the few enjoyers of that title.
You know, I was having an easy time waiting, but you're not making it sound any easier because I'm going to have to wait for this and Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. So I'm going to have some patience building in my brain.
Yeah. Be glad that you don't have a PlayStation 5. That'll make things easier for you.
I guess so.
Yeah, this is believe it or not, I actually do want to play this game because from what I've heard from you and just other people that know what I like, this sounds like the Final Fantasy game I would actually like.
It's so cool. I honestly, I said I can understand why it could be divisive, but at the same time, I'm like, some of the comments I've heard about people saying, "Oh, it really falls off in the second half," or "All these side quests are terrible." I'm just like, what world did you come from?
I think Final Fantasy fans right now are just a mess because there's too many people want different things, so they just can't ever agree on what's actually good and what's not.
Yeah. I will say, I think overall, as a Final Fantasy game, 7 Remake probably has the more ideal, like, if they keep going down that line, that would be like the ideal, this is a Final Fantasy combat system. But this one's so good that, or like, okay, I'm sure like Devil May Cry 5 has more depth to it overall, but for what it's in, the system here is so good and like smooth going that it's just, I don't see how you could complain about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it whenever I can. But yeah, I think it's good that they almost have, I mean, you have the remake series and it's like its own thing now. So if you like that combat, you can play that. So then they can be a little more experimental with the main Final Fantasy series.
Yeah, not let that ever stop them before.
Right.
10 went from full turn based, and then 10-2, they said, hey, let's give Yuna a gun, and now it's going to be
And then
active time battle again.
and then 11 was an MMO. So
yeah. What a series.
yeah. Have you played any other Final Fantasies, Parrott, or would this be like your first?
I played Final Fantasy VII, like the original one. Last year I played it, and then I own Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I just not played it yet.
Ooh, whenever you play it again, I'll play it again because I have it on PC. I played the original PS4 version, but I have it on Steam. I would love to play it again, and it's not that long, which is good. So
yeah, it's on my list. And then Final Fantasy 16, I also want to try. I will say I'll mention it later, but I recently discovered that at my library you can actually rent PS5 games. I never knew you could. I didn't know that my library was connected to like almost every library in Massachusetts. So now Final Fantasy 16 is probably, I'll probably play it sometime next year when the demand goes down a little bit.
Nice. That's funny because like I kind of discovered that when I got married and moved to New York, like the public library system for Kindles, like I can rent books out from Brooklyn Library, which is huge. And then we did also discover at our local library you can rent movies out. So if there's not anything streaming that you want, you could always do that.
Yep, it's really nice. I'll mention later, but I already got a couple games from the library, so I'm ready to go.
Nice. All right, well, this isn't a good segue at all, but we're going from like one of the highest budget games that Connor's playing, Final Fantasy 16, to one of the lowest.
Probably the highest budget game I've ever played. I swear all of Japan was working on this thing at times.
Well, Sunsoft, who I think they're now not in existence anymore, back when they were working on Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday, not the most high budget game ever. I will say the graphics are really good for this game. The sprite work look great. Everything else about this game, pretty terrible, I gotta say.
Maybe they had a whole one person from Japan working on this game.
Yeah. I hope nobody from Japan was working on this game, but yeah, I mean, I had to continue my trek through my old school Looney Tunes library that I own. And I remember as a kid, this game's hilarious because I remember the Easy Allies playing this for Summer Games Fest one year. They like played the whole thing and they're like, this is the worst piece of trash we've ever played.
Big claim.
Because it's just, the level design is awful. You have like no idea where to go half the time, especially in the Atlantis world. It's just like, typically you go right. Well, this game in the Atlantis world, you don't have no idea where you're going. It's just the bosses are pretty much the same every single time, and I only played it because, like I said, I have nostalgia for it, and it does look really good. The sprite work top notch, but I think that's what the whole budget went to because nothing else is very good. So that's all I have to say about Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday.
Did you play through the whole thing?
Oh, I played through the whole thing. It's only like 2 hours, so
So are you saying that I shouldn't play Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday?
Well, I will say, depending how many games you have for your Looney Tunes top 10 whenever we do that subject, it's not going to make my list if I have more than 10 Looney Tune games. I'll say that.
Okay, that's good to know. Because, yes, we can, we're not going to announce when, but there will be a Looney Tunes top 10 episode. And I've currently played 0, so I need to get to at least 10. So that's good. But they all are seemingly short, so I think I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. Especially if you play a lot of the Super Nintendo Game Boy ones that I've been playing. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Porky Pig.
Well, Porky Pig Haunted Holidays. We'll move on to my other game. My last game I really want to talk about. Also a horror game, maybe slightly more scary.
Looks a little haunted.
It is called Dusk. Now, this is in the genre called boomer shooter, which is a genre that I've played a lot. I used to play the old Doom games a lot on 360 ports, but I never played a game other than the original Doom. Like Doom 1 and 2, and then like the expansions, whatever. So I didn't really know that this was a genre that actually had a name at this point. So this is the first one of these that I've ever played outside of Doom, and I absolutely love this game. I started it just yesterday from when we recorded, and I played the entire 8 hours in 2 days. So I was really, really, really into this. I love the vibe of this game. So like the level design is so good in this game. Like you, just like in those old school Doom games, you pretty much are running around the map fighting different enemies with like multiple different weapons you have, and you're kind of like toggling between them all as you're trying to balance all their ammo. And then you're like looking for colored key cards to open colored doors to eventually exit the level and get to the next one. But I felt like other than like a few different levels, I never actually got super lost. I think this game probably could have used a map at times, but honestly, even without it, I really didn't find it too difficult.
Yeah, and this is a genre where explicit maps are kind of just a non-point for the most part.
Yeah, I think Doom had a map. One of them did. I know that one of them did at some point, or maybe that was added in the port. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know games like Quake don't. As far as I'm aware, Quake and Quake 2 and all them didn't have it. So if there's one in Doom, I would imagine it was a post-release thing.
Yeah, that would make sense. Honestly, like the few times I was lost, it ended up being something really stupid that I just didn't notice, like a door behind like a wall. Like it was usually something that was mostly my fault for not figuring out. But yeah. This game just has like such a cool vibe. It honestly scared me a couple times. There's so many different enemy types, and they're all like kind of like it's like Lovecraftian like monsters or like possessed people, and there's probably like a dozen different types of them that kind of get sprinkled throughout the game. I think it's like 30 levels long, and there's like a lot of cool locations like farms and like abandoned towns and caves and laboratories and like alternate dimension kind of hellscape stuff. It's super cool.
Yeah. I mentioned being really into boomer shooters and having been raised with like Quake, like literally Quake 2 or Action Quake mod for Quake 2 being one of my first games I would play. And I'm going to admit, though, this is top horror for me. These boomer shooter style things, this is I can't really finish them because they scare the crap out of me.
I'll never play these games then, so
that might just be my me as like a 5-year-old kid watching my dad play Quake 4, which was a very kid-friendly game. So might just be some trauma getting kicked up in my brain whenever I see that old style of graphics. But
yeah, they're really like the monster design. This is so cool, like the old style graphics. and just there's some really clever setting. I won't spoil it, but as it gets further, some like really really clever levels, and
Nice.
some of one of the enemies, one of them like actually scared me, just like a jump scare, like holy crap, I didn't expect that. And then one of them is like actually genuinely pretty freaky looking. So yeah, I was just
Nice.
super 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 into this game. Now that's the stealth game from my last game and this. These are two genres I'm going to be looking at in the Steam sale this week.
Very good. Severed Steel is another good boomer shooter type game that I've been enjoying, but I'll just throw that one out there.
Well, yeah, let me message me it later. I'll try to look it up.
Nice. All right. Well, last for me is just a final report on Sunhaven, which I think I've mentioned a few times. But since I was playing it co-op, it was a long process to get through this game. And as I tend to discover every time I try playing a farming sim, my patience for farming has its limits. And this was as I've said, I think I've said before, this was more of an action RPG influenced one, where some of the more classics farming elements were a bit streamlined, but in exchange they added some actual exploration to it, and then a little more like character stuff, at least compared to Stardew, which is my main point of reference. But near the end of the first year in game, I started to kind of wane with it, because it turns out there's usually a reason why farming and exploration aren't really hand in hand, and that can probably be guessed from how that job works in real life. Is that anytime you're not on the farm is like kind of lost time as far as farming goes. So you kind of end up in this situation where the game starts requesting a lot of resources from you that you have not been building up at all, because you've been running around all over the place. So there's a little bit of at least for me, it was a bit of a conflict of interest in terms of what the game wanted.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like Rune Factory has done that a lot too. It's like a lot of these farming sims have become action exploration stuff as well. And I've been craving one, so I'm gonna play one at some point. But I got a few, like Harvestella might be the one I play.
Yeah.
But I do have this on my list, so we'll see. But there's just so many options out there; it's overwhelming.
It's crazy how many suddenly popped up.
I know. I feel like this is like whenever you watch like a PlayStation Direct or whatever, like a Nintendo Direct or a PlayStation Showcase or whatever. It's like there's like 3 of these things every single time, and as someone that's never played any, I honestly can't even tell the difference between them. They're all just like farming and fighting and romance, and that's the game. It's like every single one of them. So I don't know how you know what's good or not. I have no idea.
I'm starting to think that the ideal farming sim for someone like me is the same thing as the racing games, where it's just like, why don't you give me the farming sim where I have to do all the little details?
Like, you should get the farming simulators then.
True.
Make me repair my tractor, and how about maybe like there's a mechanic where I can like graft a tree for an orchard, for like I have to prune everything. Why don't you make me go all the way, so I'm actually spending a whole day's effort in the farm?
You know, they have like competitions for farming simulators, so you could be a professional player someday, Connor.
Oh boy, what is that a real thing?
Yes,
I'm pretty sure.
Oh Lord.
I'm just gonna say before anybody comments about it, yes, I said all the farming sims look the same while also playing 17 games about jumping animals. I understand that, it's a little unfair of me to say that.
It's all about familiarity. Familiarity is what gives you the eye for detail.
Yep.
But yeah, my friend and I finally finished the last quest on that, and just called it good. We might have cheated.
Nice. Well, whatever it takes.
Yep.
All right. Well, my last game I actually just finished today as we were recording. It is Marvel's Midnight Suns.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Ryochi really recommended this to me, and I still remember when this game first got announced, I was not happy, because I love Fire Axis, because they make the XCOM games, and XCOM 1, 2, and the spin-off one they made, which I can't remember. Oh,
Chimera Squad.
Chimera Squad, that's it. Are all excellent games, all great. And I was like, I want them to make another XCOM game not a Marvel game, which my history with Marvel, I'm not crazy for it. I love Spider-Man, but other than that, I'm not really big into any of the other Marvel stuff. But I gotta say, I started looking at this game even before Ryochi said something, and I'm like, I should maybe give it a chance because I was really worried about the card system. But I gotta say, it ended up being by far my favorite part of the game was the battle system because I shouldn't doubt Fire Axis because clearly they do a great job and they did a good one with this because it's such a unique system. Like there's no cover or some of the traditional XCOM stuff you'd expect, but it's mainly you get a deck. You can set your deck of cards of heroes, like you get maybe 7 or 8 cards per hero. You take 3 heroes into battle, and then you randomly get cards assigned, and you can you have a certain number of moves you can make. You have like some cards you can play 3 cards from all the heroes per turn, and it just ends up being a really good system. I think it's challenging. The difficulty settings are great because you pretty much can choose whatever you want. There's like 6 or 7 different options, and really the only thing that benefits you from going harder is the challenge, and you get more cosmetic rewards, but it doesn't really affect the actual gameplay at all. Now, the weaker aspects I feel like of the game are the fact that I don't really like Marvel that much. So the story is fine. Like it's nothing great. It's got it's basically a self-insert MC Marvel character. It's like a fanfic, pretty much. Like you're inserted into this world. It's got like persona elements where you can hang out with your friends and get close to them. Which my best friends, by the way, were Spider-Man, of course, Ghost Rider, Captain America, and Blade. So those were the 4
Nice.
people I hung out with the most.
That's a pretty ballish lineup there.
Yeah. But they definitely need to do better with that because the writing in this game is not good. It's got some bad writing, and there's just too much of it too. Like there's too much banter back and forth, which of course from Marvel because like there's so many like jokes and zingers from Tony Stark and all. It's just like, all right, enough is enough. Like if I hear one more time, what can I say except you're welcome? Because he says that every time you do you like cash in your coils to get new cards. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I still gave it a pretty good score. I gave it 4 stars, but I guess the game did not sell very well, so I don't know if we're going to get a sequel. Like the critics all loved it, but people did not buy it. So I don't know if they'll make another one. They definitely leave room open for a sequel in the ending, but I would be happy if they'd make another one because I think they could improve on the combat even more. But if they don't, it was a good one shot.
I, for one, am going to be. I think it's cool that they did it, but I, for one, would rather them go to a different IP
Or go back to XCOM.
or maybe something new. That would be exciting.
True. Now, Parrott, I know you're interested because you're a big Marvel fan.
Yeah, I have this. I don't know. I was originally thinking about playing like October, November, but as we learned this month, there's a million games coming out in October, November now from Nintendo. So, but I am planning on getting to this at some point in the next like 6 months probably because the combat does look really cool. I mean, I like card games, and like knowing that it's not like crazy difficult, like there's a lot of options is good for me because I like tactic game, but I'm not like a savant at it like you two, and I'm not like like super good at like the hard difficulties and stuff. So I'm glad that it's accessible, and I do like Marvel, and I like that from what I've seen, it's much more like Marvel comics inspired than the movies because I don't
Oh,
really
yeah.
care about the movies all that much, honestly. Like I see the movies, but that's not like my big draw. So like seeing the roster has like some really random characters in it is really exciting to me. So yeah, I'm gonna get to this.
Yeah, the random characters is where Marvel becomes more fun for me. I will say
Mm-hmm.
that much.
Yeah, that's where I kind of feel like I'm a hipster. I'm like, oh, all these characters everyone knows, they're not cool. I
I
just like the
know.
ones that, other than Spider-Man, of course.
How very Northwest of you.
Yeah, it's like it's definitely not as brutal as XCOM. Like if you don't build a facility in a certain time, you don't fail the whole campaign and have to start completely over. Like they have research projects and stuff, but it's very forgiving. There's no time limit to anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm definitely gonna play it.
Did they have an Iron Man mode in that one?
no, they have well, I don't know what it's called. It's like master or something because they have like I played mostly on hero difficulty too, but there's like story mode, like mainly for story. There's normal, there's Hero 1, Hero 2, Hero 3, and Ultra 1, 2, and 3, I think. And then there's like Legendary or something.
Why are there so many difficulty modes?
I don't know, because they just add various like status effect, like they'll add more health as you go up. Like I could have went up to Hero 3, but Hero 2 was like my sweet spot, and then I pretty much went down a little bit so I could finish in time before my trip. But yeah, it's I don't I it was intimidating with how many difficulties there are.
Yeah, I just need that option to make sure that my save file gets wiped if I mess up.
Oh god. Yeah, that's where now.
Otherwise, it's not a Firaxis game to me.
Oh boy. So I'll do my wrap up then. Obviously I played a bunch of other things. I played Siphon Filter, Dark Mirror, and Siphon Filter, Logan Shadow for PSP. They were just, I'd never played a Siphon Filter before, really. I tried like the first one for like 15 minutes, but it was a PS1 game and did not hold up very well in my opinion, so I just dropped it. So these two PSP games were pretty fun. I actually enjoyed the story weirdly, because I don't normally like these like kind of spy, like political type stories, but they were just enough for the politics part, but also like kind of characters, so I enjoyed them. And they were just kind of simple third-person shooters, run around corridors or different environments shooting people, so not
Nice.
really much to them. And then I played Resident Evil Revelations, which is also that was originally a 3DS game, but I played the PS4 port. And it says like a cool setting where a lot of the game you're taking place on a boat, which is a pretty cool setting, like an empty, kind of eerie, haunted-esque boat. You could tell it was a portable game. But it was pretty cool in theory. Some of the boss fights were like so cheap, I just couldn't believe it. Like it's like one of those games where like you're managing your ammo and everything fine, and like the whole game is fine, and then all of a sudden it's a boss fight and you just like hit a wall, but there's no like RPG or anything. Like, so it's just like, oh, okay, now I just need to like pump like a million bullets into this dude while
Nice.
trying to dodge with the really bad dodge mechanic. So yeah.
We never did the math for this kind of boss design.
Yep. Also just has like one of the most I know this is Resident Evil, but the story, I don't even know what was going on by the end. Like, what? It's like one of those stories like, oh, this is a twist on a twist on a twist. It's like, okay, just shut up. Then I played The Murder of Sonic, which is a pretty entertaining 2-hour visual novel. It sounds just like what it is. It was a Sonic murder mystery. And I love Sonic, so I got to see him murdered, and then we had to figure out who did it. And yeah, it was only 2 hours long, so I think it's definitely worth trying, just because like the novelty is pretty funny, and honestly, for what it is, it's really well done.
Yeah, I have it. I definitely want to play it at some point.
That was such a hilarious out of nowhere thing for them to release.
It was free, so.
And the fact that it's actually like has some thought into it and some budget behind it. It looks really nice, and yeah, it's actually surprisingly good for I kind of assumed it'd be like just like a crappy free game. Like, remember when they had the Colonel Sanders dating sim on Steam?
Oh, yes.
I kind of thought we were going like that kind of level, but no, it was actually pretty legit.
Nice.
And then just quickly, I'll also shout out, I finished Pizza Tower. Definitely one of my favorite games I played this year, but we talked quite a bit about it last episode, so I just wanted to mention that I finished it.
And I'll just mention that I upped my rating on that game because I finally witnessed how the taunt was supposed to work, and then realized that would have made a lot of my playthrough a lot better.
Yep. I did not know that either until who said it? Moki said it, but yeah, didn't know that.
I was watching like the speed run too, I think.
Oh yeah. Would have helped probably, because my one issue with the game was I didn't really like any of the boss fights. So that maybe would have helped me a little bit.
Just a little bit.
That game is definitely one that I'm looking for on the Steam sale. So if I get it, you'll definitely have to tell me what this all means. So
do it.
Yeah, great game, great vibes. And I kind of want to go back. I've said, but I want to go back and try some of the Wario Land games again to see if maybe now in my older age I'll like them.
Nice. All right. Well, I don't have any other games, but there is one that we all played this month. However, before we get to that meaningful experience, I'm going to start with some we're going to go ahead and get rid of the last bit of gaming brain rot out of the show. So it's multiplayer minute. Parrott, go.
I played the entire Gears of War 5 campaign with my good friend Alex and Jacob. I enjoyed it. the characters grew on me a bit more because I'm not really a big Gears of War 4 fan. I didn't love the new cast, but this game has great combat, great set pieces, but I have no idea why they added an open world section. It makes no sense, but it was still a pretty solid game. And the other multiplayer game I played a lot of this month is a game called Door Kickers Action Squad, which Door Kickers is like a tactical game, and this is a 2D co-op version where you play as like cops and you're trying to break into the rooms and save all the hostages, defuse bombs, etc. And it's very easy if you don't care about the hostages' lives. But Alexis and I have been playing this and trying to get 3 stars in every mission, so it is like each mission is taking like 20 minutes, but it is very satisfying when we actually can do it.
I played more Dark Tide. Dark Tide is Dark Tide. Plasma gun go burr. And then I played through Halo Combat Evolved for the first time, but it was not the right one. All right, that's been a whole minute.
Wow, what a tease! I'm not sure what that means.
I have something to add as well. I played Super Mario Party with my wife and my niece and nephew, and I got last place, so I wasn't very happy. And I also plan in July to start Halo, the first one, with my friend. We were finally going to free up a night each week to play it, so I'm going to start my Halo journey.
Nice, and you can play the proper Halo Combat Evolved, and not the one that featured 5 Mario Kart racing courses like mine did.
I don't even know what that means.
I'm not going to explain.
Well, I'm excited to hear what you think about Halo because that is not normally in your wheelhouse.
Nope.
I'm also very excited. And then you can move on to Halo 2 and beat that one before I do as well.
All right, so I guess our last game was, like you were saying, was Amori that we all played, correct?
Yes, which you, I feel like you were the one who really kickstarted roping us all together to all play this month.
Yeah, so both obviously Moki and Graham, huge Amori stands. They're always talking about how great it was. And I had just played Earthbound, so I'm like, you know what? I think it's time to try Amori because I've heard so many good things. It's one of the highest rated games that you usually see. So I didn't really know that much going in. I knew it was going to be dark. I knew that it was going to be similar to Earthbound, but I got to say I really really liked it. It's definitely one of my favorite games of the year. It will for sure be appearing in the top 10 at the end of the year. But I just thought the art style was wonderful. I love like the colorful like drawn just characters like for the battle system. I really like if you put a weapons triangle in the game of any type, I'm going to be all in, which this one was an emotions triangle, but I still really liked it. And yeah, I really like the battle system. I really like the story, and the characters were great too. I thought the ending surprised me. The story, even though like I said, I knew it was going to be dark, there were twists in it that really surprised me. The music was great, and yeah, I really don't have any bad things to say about it. It's just a really great game.
I am also just like, I really love the visual style. It's like not just the fact that they had the cool hand drawn art for all the combat, but specifically like the way they rendered it all, it created this sense of depth to everything you were looking at, where it kind of felt like someone was hanging these paper puppets down in front of you. Really appreciated that.
Just like Aubrey's headbutt animation in the combat was my favorite. Like, not only did I use that move a lot, I just love the animation style for it.
Yeah, I had a slightly different experience with the combat system, it sounds like, from most people, whereas I kind of figured out how to entirely bypass the emotion system for the most part, which part of me wonders is kind of intentional or not, because there's almost something poetic about that in a way with how the story goes. But yeah, I was mostly just stabbing people a lot with that hack away move.
Yeah, I would do like read the sad palm too, and then do like that critical knife stab with Amori. I always like that one too.
Yeah. I was for the combat. I was kind of like more on Connor's side, right? I honestly like kind of got into the rhythm where just like every fight, I just did the same thing with everybody, and I never really was forced to change my strategy. Like I would headbutt with Aubrey, heal with Hero, like heal the squad, and then like Amori, I would just make him sad, and then or yeah, I would do whatever one allowed me to lower the opponent's defense, and then other than that, I never did anything that involved the emotions.
But yeah, other than the combat, I was a big fan of the story in this one. I wouldn't say I was as surprised as you, because there were a few things where it's like I wasn't quite sure how they were gonna go, but at the same time, I knew more or less where they were going. But that actually kind of made it work even better for me because a lot of the themes in the game are about kind of confronting certain things. So that having that thought in the back of my mind from like literally the first 30 minutes of, oh, I see what happened here, and then just having to go learn about all these characters and then develop an attachment to all of them and then have to actually confront it at the end was like, oof, ugh, ugh.
I know one of the biggest things that hit home for me too is just like the part about like your friends growing apart, because that's always
Mhm.
like I'm a big into nostalgia too, so I'm just like, oh, you think about the friends you had in childhood, and I do have some friends that I still kept, but it's like, wow, it is crazy how people just grow apart, and they even talk about dealing with that like after the event that happens. They're just like they all react in different ways, and they don't know how to cope with it, so they just all naturally fade apart and kind of do their own things until later on that's like, why did we do that? And that
Yeah.
that really hit home with me.
I agree. That is honestly the part that was one of the most prominent parts to me too, because I liked how when you're in like the other section of the game, that's more the straight up RPG. It's almost like this whimsical world. On the surface, it's like a whimsical world. It's like childhood wonder, exploring like their friendship as children, and then yeah, like just the other section where it's they've grown apart, and then it is something that I always find sad, but it's just something that happens in life and you can't
Hmm.
really control it. But it's just like one of those sad themes that I always in some like in a story that I always appreciate. It makes me feel sad every time, but it's something it kind of reminded me of like Stephen King's It, honestly, where that is one of the big themes from that story, where it's like about them growing apart from each other, and that's I don't know, it just always hits home for me, like you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they handled a lot of the subject matter that they were doing very well, in my opinion. That, uh,
Me too.
so overall, very, very happy we played this game.
Yep, highly recommended.
Yep, me too. I struggled a bit with the ending. I still not totally sure I personally enjoyed it, but I think that overall that I just, the whole package of it was very, very good, very well done, very thoughtfully done. So definitely
Yeah.
worth playing.
I feel like I had a good point for that on your comments about the ending, but I've totally forgotten it at this point. Oh well,
Yeah, it's somewhere out there.
Well, and
somewhere.
Parrott and I both had some technical issues at the end playing on
Yes.
Steam Deck. For some reason, the ending credits video will not load. So I ended up playing it through 3 times to get the actual ending. But all you get is the credits and then the achievement popping. So other than that, it's really no point. And the last section is long. So by the third time, I'm like, I really don't want to do this again.
Yep.
Yeah,
So that happened to me too, and I just didn't. I just didn't. I just looked up the last 30 seconds on YouTube. So
Hmm.
Steam says I didn't do it, but I can't say that I particularly care about Steam achievements. So I was just like, I'm not doing this. I tried to pass it to my computer, but it didn't have a cloud save. So
Yep.
yeah.
and then I deleted it from my Steam Deck, so it's gone. So I'd have to start over now. So it's not happening.
10+ years of Steam achievements, and they still can't get me to care.
No.
Oh, and last shout out: the music in this in Amori is just
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal.
We're going to talk
It's
about that more later.
so varied, so much cool stuff going on. All right, well, on to the redhead stepchild of our sections, the movies and TV.
Yeah.
Straw Hat, what were you watching this month?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have any anime. I didn't watch any anime this month because
Well, it's over.
I know it's over. My wife and I are still watching Haiku, but other than that, I was mostly watching SGDQ instead this month. Like I watched a
Uh,
lot of the replays because I usually can't watch it live, so I just will catch the streams on YouTube later. And I always like watching it, especially some of my favorite games, like the Paper Mario run this year was crazy. Like that's a 10 to 15 hour, it's probably more like a 10-hour RPG just playing it normally. They beat it in like around 2 hours just by completely
Jeez.
breaking the game, like skipping chapters completely. it was pretty crazy to watch. But that one, the blind playthrough of Breath of the Wild was also a highlight because that's just insanity. Like the guy was blindfolded the whole time playing the game and he beat the game.
It fascinates me when people are able to sequence break a game like Paper Mario, because
Yep.
as I'm in the middle of setting up, I'm head deep in a bunch of that technical information, and just the amount of things that could possibly go wrong from playing sections out of order is rather high. So
Yeah.
it continuing to work is impressive.
It's just because they break it by like one of the partners in the game, Sushi's like a fish you can ride in like certain water sections off a dock. And if they stood at this one pixel where you could trick the game into thinking you're in the water and you're in the world, so you can just like dive under people and dive under the world, and it's nuts. But that's what it's for. The other speed run I want to shout out is the Ratatouille on GameCube one, because they just kept saying yes chef, thank you chef the whole time when they were playing it, which was hilarious. So, and then the other things I was watching, we finished Ted Lasso, which I'm sure Parrott did as well,
Yep.
which it's been a while at this point, but I'm pretty sure the series is over. It wrapped up pretty nicely, so I'd be shocked if they would continue unless it's like some spin-off series. But
Yeah, that is how I kind of also think. I think it wrapped up the story pretty nicely. My girlfriend's really obsessed with the show. She really loved it. She's watched I don't know, she watched the new season probably like 3 or 4 times already. So
yeah, my
she's
wife,
really into it.
she also loves it. I think the third season's definitely my least favorite season. It ends well. I feel like the beginning and then the middle kind of loses its way a bit, but by the end it's back to being like as good as season 1 and 2, I feel like.
Yeah, I think for me, it suffers from the problem I think a lot of shows do as they go on. Like each season adds new characters, and then you like all the characters, but by the end, there's so many characters that it's really hard to dedicate enough time to every single person. So that
Mhm.
I felt like this season, while I did really enjoy it, like some of the time just was spent on things I didn't personally really care that much about, and like they're still adding more characters even though it's seemingly the final season. So it's just like it gets to be a little bloated, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like too many storylines going on at once, and it's like that just dilutes everything.
Yeah, but ultimately, I did find it to be a pretty good final season. But I do think there's going to be some sort of spinoff. That's my assumption.
It's one of the pluses to the Game of Thrones style of character work, where it's just like, oh, we started with a bunch, but now there's like 5.
It's true. I don't think it quite would have worked in this setting, but it would have been
It would have been
interesting.
a very scary show if that all of a sudden that happens.
Hey, it's a sports show has the equivalent. It's the I'm moving away, or the I graduated,
That's
or the
true.
to quote the haiku, the one that my haiku friends
Yeah.
tend to go, "Well, senior graduated, might as well have died."
I'll give a nice segue to Parrott for his next show, I'm sure. But the reality show we were watching was The Great Chocolate Showdown, which was like a chocolate baking show from Canada. We watched the first season, and there's a couple more, so we might keep watching it because it was pretty good. Of course, I love chocolate, so who wouldn't like that? But we always just like the one host that they have, these cooking shows always have to have these weird taglines to make themselves seem cool, but she's always like, ready, steady, get your chocolate on or get your sweet on. It's like, all right, why do we need to do this cooking shows? Like between the humor and the random catchphrases, it's like they got to make it cool. But yeah, it was a fun show. So
Yeah. Who could ever imagine watching reality TV, huh?
I know. Speaking of
Wonder.
Parrot,
I watched Survivor. Who would have guessed?
Whoa.
I originally had said our goal was to watch all 40 seasons. Well, that instantly, we sidetracked that goal almost instantly. I think I talked about it last month. We finished season 1, and then now we skipped all the way up to 6, and we watched that over the course of the month. Honestly, we didn't not have a ton to say about it. Like I said earlier in the show, I've been really busy with all sorts of random events, so the 13 episodes took us almost an entire month. So our pace, not great. I'm just gonna say it's not great, but
I'm curious, what was the skipping for? Like,
um,
what spurred that on?
it just became pretty abundantly clear with the way that I watch TV that 40 seasons might legitimately take me 40 years. So I just so I decided to pare it down to like 20 and then just watch those 20, and then if we want to go back later, we'll go back. But so So I just kind of did some research, figured out which ones are supposed to be really good or popular. So we're just gonna kind of hit those first. That's the goal.
I thought you were gonna say you watched all 40 seasons this month
Oh my
already.
god.
That would be a Connor move.
Yeah, I don't have that in me. I don't have that Connor gene. And then the better thing, the
Respectable.
thing we can talk more about is I watched Spider-Verse 2 Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know if either of you went and saw this or either of you have seen the first one. Have you?
I still need to watch the first one. I
Oh.
own it, but I need to watch it and then watch this one. But I definitely want to.
I've seen the first one and I was in love with the animation.
Mm-hmm. This one's, probably even better, honestly.
Crazy.
I won't go into it too much, but yeah, this was a wonderful movie for me. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to talk about that on the show so far, but I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably even over 1,000 Spider-Man comics. So this is right up my alley, having all the alternate Spider-Man and all the references to all the different comics and things. This was just like a perfect movie for me in particular, and I feel like it does a really good job. It like the first half honestly is like really not that intense with the Spider-Verse stuff. It's just really mostly about Miles the character and Gwen the character. I think that's really good because it gives you a lot more into their backstories and gives you a more emotional connection to those two in particular. And then in the second half is where it kind of starts to get into the more like spectacle element, which I thought was a good mix.
Nice. I like how you've declared a new synonym for masochism, which is reading thousands of Spider-Man comics. Even I'm tangentially aware enough to know that that's a painful experience.
Yeah, at some points it definitely was. I did it over the course of like a year.
The amount of injustice done to that character in the comics.
God, I don't even want to get into it, but shout out my boy Ben Reilly, the original clone of Spider-Man, Scarlet Spider in this movie. Best part, obviously, just seeing him there. I was so hyped.
Nice. Spider-Man having clones is just like, it's just so weird how normal of a thing that is.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things that like the average person that just like watch Spider-Man movies or whatever has no idea that is just like a huge part of Spider-Man. That dude's got like 70 clones, I swear.
I think there was one that I saw where it literally was like 40 clones.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. And at one point in time in the 90s, people thought that was the worst thing that ever happened to the character. Well, little did they know what was going to come in the decades since, but
I like how I still managed to drag out some of this pain. Good session.
It
Good.
hurts.
Well, completely removed from that, I watched one thing this month, and it was some actual classic cinema. The Forbidden Planet, 1956 sci-fi, one of the earliest spacefaring sci-fis, apparently. Or I think it's like faster than light speed travel or something to that extent. Don't know. I need to do more history on this stuff. In either case, this was a very impressive movie for its time. Like, really impressive visual effects work for the technology they had to work with. Like this, they had this great scene where like a door just melts into magma. It's just like, I'm really surprised they managed to pull that off. But great sense of scale. The acting is really funny because it's still in that era where it's kind of stage acting, and it's some of the parts of the writing. You're just like, man, these people just got off the boats from the war. It has that very post World War II kind of mentality to how the characters work and operate, and it's very fascinating to watch. Sometimes it's kind of just a little bit on the cringing side, but the sci-fi elements are still really cool, and I think that holds up the story on its own. So very much worth checking out if you're a fan of sci-fi cinema.
I think I would probably check this out. I like looking at the pictures. It seems great.
Yeah, and this one of the major characters from this will be featured again later in the show.
Ooh.
That reminds me, this is definitely an old show, and I should have shouted this out earlier this month. I also watched a bit of my favorite show, The Twilight Zone,
Nice.
which from the late 50s, the 60s.
Yeah, the one I've watched.
Yep. So if you want to listen more about that, check out our good friend Addie's podcast, An Hour to Kill. I'll just plug that because I was on there and I had a fun time. So yeah, go check that out if you looking for a good podcast about horror.
Great show. You should all listen.
I can't say I've listened. Sorry, Addie. I don't like horror, but I'll download.
I will say most of the movies they've talked about so far are stuff that I haven't seen yet, and will probably take a while to get to, considering my horror is a little bit lower on my priorities. But Twilight Zone's up my alley.
Yep. Meanwhile, this show is going to be transformed in the coming months because once it gets Halloween time, I'm going to be watching a lot of movies all of a sudden. So get ready.
I have a growing laundry list of things that people want to heap on me for October.
October for me will probably mostly be Luigi's Mansion and Scooby-Doo games. That's as far as I'll go in horror.
Very daring.
Hey, Parrott, do you have any comments on reading this month? Because I think otherwise we don't have too much to say there.
I just want to shout out the short story I discovered by Alma Katsu called The Werewolf. She's one of my favorite authors. She's the one that does like historical horror, where she places like a horror story in a historical setting. And this one takes place in like the tail end of World War II in Nazi Germany as they're losing, and they are, some werewolf shenanigans going on. So I just wanted to shout that out. This apparently came out in 2022, and it was one of those things where I just happened to be looking at her page, seeing if she had a new book come out, and I found out that I missed one. So I went back and checked that out.
I see that they did a funny little thing with the spelling of werewolf there.
Yep.
I'll let the viewers guess as to what that is.
I don't like it.
And then, I read a few other books. Actually, I read a book this month that I disliked so much that I stopped reading for a week, but we don't have to talk about that.
Whoa.
It was one of those books that was like the first 200 pages I was pretty into it, and then the second 200 were so bad that I just couldn't. And then I didn't read for a bit. But we won't talk about that one. I don't even want to give it the dignity of mentioning the name, but
wow.
I'll just quickly shout out this other book I got from the library. It's called The Illustrated History of Ghosts by Adam Boardman, and it is a really, really cool book. It's just it is literally like a board book, I guess, and it's just full of illustrations, and it's just about the history of people's belief in ghosts, and it goes throughout the decades and talks about all these different hauntings that supposedly happen. You can be the judge if it's real or not. And then, the different techniques people would use to try to communicate with spirits, the history of where this belief came in, all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting to flip through.
That does sound neat. I especially love when that kind of stuff is illustrated, because there's nothing I love more than cool monster designs.
Yes, and they have, hold on one second. They have another book too. It's like the Illustrated History of UFOs, I believe is what it's called. So
oh boy,
I have not read that one yet.
All right. Well, I didn't read anything, and Strawhat said he didn't have too much to say on it. So
yeah, I mean, I read The Tethered Mage. You might like, Connor. It's kind of like more of a political book on. It's like a fantasy book. It's very steeped in politics. So I think you might want to check that one out, because it's basically about this heiress that has to babysit this mage girl that's like a thief, but the magic kids are under strict orders. They have to have protectors, and they have to have words, you have to release their powers basically. But it ends on a big cliffhanger, and they don't have the second one available to borrow. So I'm just
that'll be a wait for me then.
Yeah. And then I just read One Punch Man Volume 1 and Naruto Volume 1 just because I'm whatever, I needed something to read. They're fine. So but yeah, so the Collectathon Club this month, a little bit of it's a iffy month, I guess, because we had Banjo-Tooie, which, as you guys know, one of Connor's favorite games from his childhood. And I have a very mixed range of emotions with this game, which if we do a special episode, I'll get more into it. But basically, the beginning of the game, great. Just, I loved every minute of it. Then we got to about a little over halfway through the game. We hit one world that I was this is kind of bad, but it's fine. Then another world where I'm this is garbage. I can't play this anymore. I'm actually angry. So that's where I'm at Banjo-Tooie.
I preemptively decided that, well, one, I didn't have enough time to play it considering the releases this month, but I have been continuously pushing this one off.
Out of fear.
I didn't mess with it. I didn't mess with it yet because I figured we're trying to schedule out our recordings, and Connor is away for July, so I figured we're not going to really discuss Banjo-Tooie until August. So I wanted to play a little closer. But yeah, that's kind of my memory of this game. It is a game that I like. I think it starts really strong. I think some of the worlds are really cool, but once you get to that middle part, that grunty industry level is like one of the worst levels I've ever played in a game.
It made me so angry. I couldn't play the game anymore. I was on track to 100% that game before that. Everything else I had done, I'm just like, this is so bad. I can't do this. I'm so
see, I feel
angry.
like that was your mistake, was trying to 100% this game.
It might have been.
I did it. I did it.
Why?
I think I don't. I did. That's my type of game. But this game
that's
is
what you're supposed to
much.
do in collectathons.
Yeah.
I am a chronic 85%er.
Yeah. What other level broke you? Was it the pterodactyl one?
Yes.
That one is one of the ones I remember being just too big for how slow you move.
There's so much backtracking. Like the one mission alone, like, okay, there's a place you go that has a triceratops and 3 babies. The one baby you have to go on a train, take on a train to the middle of the hub world where you have to get Mumbo to heal. The other one you have to get Mumbo, bring him there, make him bigger. But then also to take the dino to the train, you have to split up Banjo-Kazooie, put the animal in your pocket, take it to the train, switch back to Kazooie, go back, and it's just so much backtracking, and it just drives me crazy.
I don't know, it just sounds like fun adventure to me. As I sit there and almost died playing Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, really.
I think that this game is a lot worse than Donkey Kong 64
I
in that way.
definitely think that now. So
this is a
just
game.
Don't say that where I can hear it, so I can just pretend.
But anyway,
it does introduce a lot of cool stuff though. Like I like the first shooting sections. I like a lot of the different moves. I like how you can split them up. But I just think that in some of those levels, honestly, the level after Grunty Industry is really cool. The Hellfire Peak. So when you go back to it, that level is really cool. And then the last level, Cloud Cuckoo Land, is just absolutely shit. So
what?
So
the first 4 worlds were great. Like Jolly Roger Bay was, I think, one of the best rare water worlds. It was good. And then I loved Witchy World, like the amusement park one. That was great.
With that awesome boss fight.
Yep.
And the Gulch Mine is really cool, and the Mine Temple are cool.
And even Mumbo's the Aztec world, they were all great. It was just those 2, and then just like, it's so bad. But
all right,
in July we are playing 2 great games. I already know because I've already played them. Super Mario 64, one of the best games of all time. And for fun, actually, I've already played most of it because I decided to play the DS version, which I definitely do not recommend doing because the controls are not good. But I had 100% of that one before, and I've 100% of the regular Super Mario 64 so many times. I've just decided to play that one just to be different. And it's definitely has its pros, but definitely play the original. And then Super Mario Sunshine, we are also going to be playing, which I'm going to try in 100% for the first time ever. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep. Looking forward to these. I've played both of these so many times that I will probably not finish them, but I'm going to mess with them. Mario 64, I've 100% it on DS and the original multiple times each. So
I think my friend has another interesting version of a old game cooked up for us to play through together, and that involves Super Mario 64. So I will probably be playing the wrong version of the game, just like Halo.
Well, it'll be interesting. So
yeah. All right. Well, not much longer left, so let's go ahead and get our shout outs out of the way for today. I'll start off with my song of the month, which is, this is not going to sound like actual words, but Rouge by Ferquitus, which is an artist that I think I've shared on the server a few times, but it's an artist that came out of one of the rhythm game scenes. I can't remember exactly which one. It might have been Osu or something similar to that. But it's these really cool electronic tracks that are kind of haunting, and they play with a lot of layers of sound. And I really love their work.
Nice. I'm just going to shout out the whole Omori soundtrack like we talked about. It's great. Like, I love all the music, but I specifically like the part that goes dun 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 boom, that you kept hearing in the elevator when you'd go up and down the floors in the princess's castle. It's just like such a happy theme. But yeah, I just really like the soundtrack.
Yep, I'm going to second that. But I dug through and found the one I really like the most, and that is "By Your Side," which is the theme that plays like when you are doing the picnic scenes,
Oh
and it
yeah,
also plays in a few other sections as well, I believe. But that is the song that stuck out to me the most.
that is a good one. For me, the one that kept coming to my head is the "It Means Everything." It's just a one of the fight tracks for an interesting moment in this story.
Nice.
All right, and then for characters, as promised, I back to the Forbidden Planet with Robbie the Robot. That is my character shout out for the month.
Great
He's
name.
one of the early greats of cinema history for robot portrayals, which is, of course was a dude stuffed into a big old suit. And
Yep.
the design is pretty much ripped off entirely in Fallout 3 for some of the robots there.
I was gonna say he looks very familiar, but I know I have not seen this movie.
Yeah, if you played Fallout, I can't remember which Fallout first featured a robot like him, but yeah, they absolutely just kind of like lifted Robbie the Robot and turned that into an enemy in those games. Hilarious. Great dude. Great scene where he's a real bro. One of the dudes has him like replicate a bunch of alcohol, and then you just get this scene where he's just a huge pile of it next to the robot. uh
Why don't you go next, Parrot? Because
Oh, yeah.
apparently I'd missed the robot memo this month.
Yeah, my shout out is the character Haiku the Robot, little guy, so cute, just a circle, nice little circular round robot going on adventure. Got a huge sword. You know what's not to love? Look at him, he's so cute. It's the only reason I played this game. I'd never heard of it, and then Moki sent me a tag. You know, Moki, he gets what I like,
He
and
Yeah.
he just sent me a tag of this game, and I just saw the cute little robot that you play as, and I just went and bought it because it was on sale. That's all it took.
Yeah. When I first included the character shoutouts for the month, it was going to be kind of an excuse to just keep the tradition of the waifu shoutouts from the Weeps of the Corn
Yeah.
days. But as you know, what I didn't expect is I too would end up in continuously passing by good waifu selections, which Final Fantasy XVI sure had one, but
Ooh.
maybe next time.
Robots.
Robots
Yeah.
it is.
I gotta shout out Aubrey from Amori because she definitely resonated me with the most as far as why, like, after the group fell apart, she kind of like she basically drifted apart and she just thought everybody was fine, and then so she's just like, oh, what's wrong with me, and just kind of had to deal with that. So I really liked her character development, and I also liked her the best in battle because headbutt and beatdown were like some of the best moves. So
Yeah, Beatdown was darn useful. Great character.
Yeah, she was great. You really could have shouted out any of them, and it would have been a good
Yeah.
choice.
yeah, I liked all of them pretty much. Hero was probably like my least favorite actually, just because he's the most normal. But I mean, he was good, but
Yeah.
I like the rest of them a little more.
I think I like Kel the most. I don't know why.
Hero is the one that I like could associate with the most as far as that situation.
Yeah, he
Oh yeah,
seemed the
same.
most level-headed too, so he was the
Yeah.
oldest.
All right. And then I guess any quick comments about what we're doing next?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be playing some quick games before I leave for a week or so. Toy Story on Super Nintendo, great game if I remember right, which who knows at this point. And then Looney Tunes Carrot Crazy, which I already started and can confirm it's actually pretty good for a Game Boy game. And then I'm gonna play Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, which comes out at the end of the month. So I'm either gonna play that or Raincode first, because I forgot Raincode's also coming by the time I get back. Then as far as my JRPGs, I want to play Persona 3 Portable since the reload's coming out. Just kind of compare them, and then Trails to Reverie is coming, which that's gonna take me like 100 hours, so I'll start that at some point. So, but I already played it once, so that's my outlook.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna be playing the two games I picked up with the library. SpongeBob Cosmic Shake, a good platformer. I already played a little bit of it. Seems pretty decent so far. And then
Nice.
I also put in a hold for Resident Evil 4 Remake. I was 12th in line, and all of a sudden it got to me within 4 days. So I'm not sure what happened.
Nice.
So now I have to try to schedule that in. And then I've also been playing the second Leighton game. I've just been playing it pretty casually, like 20 minutes here and there. So it'll probably take me a long time, but it's a good way to exercise the brain with some puzzles.
Easy pick up and play style game. Do a
Yep.
couple puzzles and move on.
Yep, I'm like 4 hours in. I started last week or a week and a half ago. So yeah, it'll take a bit, but it's fun. Then, of course, the roulette wheel. The mob won. They beat me. And now Addie doesn't even want me to play it, but I have to play Trails from Zero. So that will probably be most of my month after I finish those other things.
Great game though. Connor and I love it.
Yep,
Yep.
your two co-hosts here are fully in supportive of this decision and
Mhm.
this way of your life.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to play some stuff in between, just because I just played Amori, and I know that wasn't like super long, but JRPG is a genre that I like in moderation, so a little bit of gap is probably good. And then of course, Game of the Year, Pikmin 4 comes out at the end of the month. I can't
Nice.
wait.
It's funny watching my sense of moderation on certain things just continue to evaporate over time. As I will continuing to change JRPG after JRPG, because I plan to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 next month.
Speaking
Nice.
of long games, my first I think that's the longest one. That one took me 110 hours, I think. So
Yep.
get ready.
Oh damn, that's like almost as long as one Higurashi chapter.
Yeah.
Yes. I suspect it will probably be just like a 60-hour experience for me at most, considering how the first one went. But we will see. Other than that, I will be away from my home and so I'm going to be mostly just doing stuff I can do on my laptop. So basically, it's going to be visual novels for an entire month, pretty much.
What a shame
Right.
for you, huh?
What a shame.
And of course, as we talked about, we're the day before the Steam summer sale kicks off. So who knows what we might discover that might jump into our backlogs and
Yep.
change everything.
Yeah, it will be robotics notes or nothing. I'm going to be avoiding the sale like the plague.
Oh, that's tough. 2 weeks too. Meanwhile, Parrott will be picking up Mort the hedgehog or whatever is going to be next.
Yeah, I'm gonna be buying a bunch of indie things. I do not struggle. I can resist a $60 game easily, but three $10 games, five
Oof.
$10 games, that's where I struggle. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what my biggest one I want to pick up is. I'll have to see. I usually try to just pick up like on my wish list whatever is the most discounted is what I
Yeah.
try to do. So
Man, my wish list on Steam has got stuff I've been shoving onto it for about 10 years now. That's even after all the ones I've bought.
good luck, everyone. Try not to spend too much.
And with that, that's it for us this month. I hope everyone listening enjoyed the conversation, and we wish you luck with your own backlogs and resisting the temptation of Steam.
Good luck.
See ya.
Sayonara.
Bye.